A lush pasture of green grass with cattle grazing are what dreams are made of for many cattlemen, including me. But when those pastures are full of weeds, it can become a nightmare. So what can you do to improve forage quality and quantity and ensure your cattle have the best possible grazing experience? Cattleman reporter Brian Baxter visits with cattlemen across the Southeast to find some of the keys to forage success.
When you think of the cattle industry, you don't think of, North Georgia, but North Georgia is a good place to grow cattle because if primarily for, at least 10 months out of the year, with the right fertilization program, you can grow grass and you can graze them.
With the opportunity for nearly year-round grazing, Steve Lothridge is a fourth-generation Georgia farmer who has long seen the value of working to provide high-quality forage for his cattle. For him, developing a comprehensive weed control program for his pasture land was a key step.
If we don't control weeds, it certainly limits the amount of grass that we have. And we found that in order to raise cattle, you've got to be able to be a grass farmer, and you've got to be able to grow grass. And the spraying with the price of cattle today, the more pounds that we can put on, the more grass that we can grow, the heavier these calves are going to be. And it's all about, in the commercial operation, about producing pounds. And we've got to grow the grass to be able to produce the pounds.
Mike Duke, a cow-calf producer in Mumford, Alabama, also sees the benefits weed control in his pastures bring to his herd.
As cattle prices have improved and gotten higher, so has our fertilizer cost, feed cost, everything else. That's the reason it's so important to make every acre dollar-wise count in production and try to have 100% stay on the grass out there.
Nearly every region across the country faces a wide variety of weeds that will outcompete grass. Correctly identifying those weeds is essential to winning the fight against them.
If we can figure out what they've got in the field, it makes that recommendation a lot easier. If we're combating a lot of buttercup and a lot of thistle, we're going to go with a product like Grazon P+D or Grazon Next High Load early in the year. And later in the season, if we're combating a lot of horse nettle and some pigweed, we might, approach a Grazon spray or even some chaparral late in the season to take care of some of the late summer weeds, in addition to getting some nice brush control properties with our chaparral product.
When we're looking at controlling weeds, we need to identify both annuals and biennials, but also be aware of the perennial pressure we have. One of our biggest targets in the early season is going after thistles, buttercup. We have a terrible problem with purple dead nettle and henbit. And using products like Grazon Next High Load, we can take advantage of the knockdown kill we can get out of that product, as well as the residual control.
Grazon fits well because it's a very good broadleaf herbicide. And in the early spring, we do have a lot of trouble with buttercups and thistles, and Grazon really works well, and it's got a long residual effect that it'll have a lot of residual kill on those weeds for several weeks after you've sprayed it.
That residual control eliminates weed competition and allows the grass to get a foothold on the land. A good way to start a weed control program is with soil testing to ensure proper fertilization for the new grass.
If a guy's thinking about using a good quality residual herbicide, my first recommendation is obviously to do some weed identification, make sure they've got a good relationship with their local co-op, make sure we've soil tested that ground.
The weed control, of course, is just one part of it. If their fertility levels due to pH, due to phosphate and potash levels, if they're not correct, it doesn't matter how few weeds they have or not, they're just not going to have good grass. So after we walk the fields, normally it'll be a soil test pulled, and then when it comes back, we'll go over what they need fertility-wise.
As valuable as this resource, this grass is for us, trying to maximize the most we can get out of it is very critical. And I think that staying on a program approach and taking care of this grass is our most important thing.
The Dow AgroSciences field team works closely with cattle producers to identify weeds, review product options, and recommend pasture improvement programs that build and improve the forage base over time. Producers often apply products such as Forefront HL, Grazon Next HL, and Chaparral themselves, or they work with a co-op or custom applicators to get their pastures sprayed.
We have a couple of different options. We have one that we've bought a couple of years ago. Some of this pasture is very rough, steep, too steep to get a spray rig on. We bought a pull type sprayer, PTO driven through 500-gallon tank with a cluster nozzle on the back. We also run 3 spray rigs, 2 with 80-foot booms if we're doing some bigger pastures or hay fields, and 1 with 60s if we're doing smaller. We custom apply any chemical pretty much out there.
Dow AgroSciences line of products, they have a real good rep. We pick up the phone. He will help us identify weeds sometime and help recommend the chemicals that we need. Basically, any weed problem we have, one of their products will suit the need.
No doubt controlling weeds and improving forage quantity and quality involves an additional cost up front. But the investment in weed control pays clear dividends.
She's going to say, well, why do I need to spend this? And that's where I come in to say, look, it's going to make you this much money instead of costing you this much. They're going to notice a difference in their fields, especially when they're feeding their cattle. When they start backing off and leaving feed in a trough, and they'll call and they'll say, well, I'm not having to feed them as much. It must be this grass. It must be something we've done. We need to keep doing it. That's their measure.
You know, it's really neat to start working with someone who's really never implemented a herbicide program, because it is a big difference in year one. A lot of times what you can start seeing, you'll see a lot of the vegetation controlled other than the grass. You'll see the grass being released. Usually there's a good height difference in the grass, whether we're talking this time of year when we're maximizing our ryegrass, or whether we're talking into the summertime when we're taking control of some of the other unwanted weeds in our Bermuda and Bahia grass.
If we can get the grass to grow ahead of the weed competition, if we can eliminate the weeds that are in the field, we're going to grow a better stand of grass. And as Mr. Lothridge pointed out, if we can grow more grass, we're going to be able to put more pounds of beef on our animals. And at the end of the day, that animal is going to make us more money. Whether it's at the sale barn or in the feed lot, if we're retaining ownership, that animal is going to be worth a lot more to us and to our operation if we can grow that animal better on grass.
These Southeast producers and producers across the country know feed costs aren't likely to drop anytime soon. So the best way to put more pounds on cattle and ultimately more dollars in your pocket is to use an effective weed control program to make your grass better.
The economics on feeding cattle has not changed. A good fertilizer program, good weed control program, and grasses, any way you look at it, is still the cheapest and most efficient way to raise and do cattle.
Well, I've learned one thing: you've got to be a grass farmer. I mean, if you want, you've got to learn to grow grass if you want to be successful, because you can have the best genetics, you can have the best equipment, you can have everything, but if you can't grow grass, you're going to be in trouble.
From the cattle grazing lands of the Southeast, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Dow AgroSciences' full range of products can be suited to fit nearly any rangeland or pasture. For help selecting the best product for your individual situation and management goals, head to our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. Visit rangeandpasture.com to find the right product for the job. We'll be right back.